Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., all rights reserved.
Across the vein of night, there cuts a path of searing light, burning like a beacon on the edges of our sight.
That's Dan Fogelberg bringing us back 23 after the hour. Thank you very much for staying with me. I'm Jim Blasingame, and I am the Small Business Advocate. Please check out my website, smallbusinessadvocate.com. Judith Glaser, Dr. Judith Glaser is our guest, our longtime Brain Trust member, 7 years now as a member of our Brain Trust. Judy, thank you for 7 great years. She's the author of The DNA of Leadership, Creating We, 42 Rules for Creating We. You're starting to get the picture. She's a really smart lady, and we've been talking about this idea of being right, the need to be right in our conversations. One of my mentors, Judy, said to me one time, sometimes you got a fighting chance, and sometimes you just have a chance to fight.
That's beautiful.
I've used that so many different ways over the years, whether it be a project that really wasn't going to go anywhere, or whether it was a personal relationship or a conversation.
It speaks to really, we have to have wisdom when we go into conversations, and often we're brought into a conversation with somebody because we're pissed off at them, or they did something, and we're out there ready to get back already, before you even start to open your mouth, and that creates the wrong chemistry. That brings people to a lower part of the brain. You and I talk about that a lot, to the amygdala. Yeah. We're hijacked, right? That's when we're in our primitive state, and we are in a state of threat. So everything we hear and everything we say comes from a place of threat. And we're in a world right now where people are just calling to each other to learn how to have better conversations. You turn on the TV, whether it was Obama, and he mentioned conversation when he, became president more than any other word, and then it started to run around the world, and everybody's saying, and this is what is exciting about my new book. This book is about how conversations can transform the world. If we do what you're talking about, which is have that mindfulness, that extra minute where we say, what do I have to bring to this conversation to make it great? How do I address this person?
Don't we first need to know ourselves, though? Because, see, as I mentioned earlier, I go into a conversation, and I've had to learn that I'm probably going to be, if not the strongest, one of the strongest personalities in that conversation. And so I know that I'm going to have to probably, I'm going to have to try to dial back to some degree. Some people that I know would probably, do the other. They'd have to say, okay, I want to sell this person. I want to convince this person to hire me. I want to, whatever. I need to find out if maybe I need to step my game up a little bit. What do you think, Judy?
What that's called is called, in my book, Conversational Intelligence, I call that the third eye. It's developing that third eye, that place right above your brain. In fact, it's been around for 1,000 years. It's that insight and wisdom. You said get to know yourself, where you have to be able to step back and say, this is what I intend to do. This is the impact that I want to have. Now, how do I set this up? How do I prime this situation so I really get the right impact?
And I role play that with myself before the conversation.
Perfect.
I actually go, I have a word with myself. Let me put it this way: if I have a successful conversation, I do it. If I forget to do it, I might not have a good conversation.
That's right. And you use the word dial back. That what happens actually when you're doing that, in the prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that's called the executive brain, when you have that conversation with yourself, you have a chance to dial back the kind of energy, whether it's too strong, whether it's a little bit edgy, whether it's negative, because it's going to trigger somebody no matter what you want to do, it's going to trigger. So you dial it back, you downregulate is the scientific terms, and all of a sudden what comes through from you is an intention of a positive intention.
All right,
people feel that.
I want to talk. By the way, before we go any further, I want your website, please. Website.
Okay, the main website is www.creatingwe.com. Creatingwe.com, and we have a new initiative, which I must say is all about conversational intelligence. And if people go to conversationalintelligence.com, they can see our global initiative, which is called Conversations That Transform History, which is going to take place in Philadelphia starting the end of this year at the National Constitution Center. We partnered with them, and we partnered with universities, and we're partnering with businesses and schools to help everybody come to the table and start to figure out what great conversations look like and how we as a world can collectively start to change the conversation.
Conversations that change the world.
Yeah, conversations that change history.
That change history, I mean.
Yep,
yeah, okay.
Yep.
And so tell us more about that.
What I met with the Constitution Center about 3 years ago, and we decided we wanted to work together because we're all about we. And they said, well, where should we start? And I said, why don't we go back to the Constitution and drop in like we could see it again happening in front of our eyes, and get the constitutional experts paint the picture, the story of how it came about and why it worked. How could we be at a place now where we have such a different way of looking at democracy? It never existed then. How do we look at the Constitution as a platform for building world peace, for building synergy, for building the community that we all need to be together and to work on the problems that we face? And they said, great, we have experts that can do that. And I said, well, what if we brought neuroscientists who could tell us why it worked chemically, and media people and business people who can wrestle with the issues like trust and conflict and innovation and what happened back then, and how do we bring that learning and wisdom forward and amplify it and get better at it? So all of a sudden, we all become smart. We lift it together. We lift that intelligence together. And that's what's happening. We are getting people that want to be plugged into this. And if people go to the conversationalintelligence.com website, people can actually sign up for it early because we have and then it's going to be telecast.
And you're going to keep us posted on how this is going.
Absolutely. I want to get your audience involved in the research.
All right, we'll do that. Judy,
cool.
Is there a place we can go? Give us another website quickly.
Yeah, it's conversationalintelligence.com or creatingwe, creatingwe.com.
Thank you, Judy, for being here. Good job today. Judith Glaser, ladies and gentlemen, she'll be back. I will be too after these messages.
Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other copying, redistribution, or publication without prior written consent is prohibited. All rights reserved.